Well, hello there, you beautiful people, and welcome back to the magical and mystical
And wonderful.
Yes, and wonderful Adventures of Gordon. Episode 4. Let's try to take over the world. Here's a little recap of our last adventure, and if you haven't listened, what are you playing at? Go back and find out for yourself. But if you have, you will know that Gordon decided to call in the big guns, a.k.a. Weezer and Iam, to help them rescue Mildred, their militaristic mother, from the clutches of the evil King Schwebbie. Well, they all returned home, so that was mission accomplished. But they didn't expect what was next, and without further ado, let's continue the adventure. The family were reunited, and to celebrate, Nannan had made them all cups of Yorkshire tea. Oh, it was delicious. Victory over the king. They all went into the kitchen and sat around the big kitchen table, mugs in hand. Gordon peered over to Grandad and noticed he hadn't got a tea. And then he remembered Grandad didn't like tea. Grandad only drank the finest hot chocolate in the land, and Gordon started to drool. Oh. Well, Nan and Brenda had already picked up on this and shoved a mug under his and Polly's noses. They blew on the scalding hot drinks and couldn't wait to slurp it all up. Delicious. When everyone had finished, they all decided they would stay the night, and so, one by one, they showered and went to bed. As Weezer was getting changed, she noticed she had Ella's magical pouch still. She decided to put it to one side until the morning, then they could decide what to do with it. They were all cream-crackered, a.k.a. knackered, so went to bed early and all began snoring away. It must have taken all of 5 seconds for the tribe to fall asleep. It would have been peaceful if they weren't all such loud, snory beasts. With all the snoring going on, nobody even noticed Ella's magical pouch began to vibrate, and then out of its opening a light appeared and out shot an orb. When it exited the pouch, it grew in size and hovered over all the sleeping family. A single laser shot from a tiny small hole on the front of the orb and began scanning its surroundings. It scanned the entire room and shot off into the hallway. It was searching for something or someone, who knows? In its quest, it darted into all of the other rooms and then descended the staircase and into the living room. Coming to an abrupt halt, the orb spotted what it was looking for. The magical quilt lay on the ground in the corner of the room. It scanned the quilt and shot a laser onto one of the corners, which immediately burst into flames. Then it sprayed a mist onto the flame as to keep it under control. Meanwhile, upstairs, Cookie the little Jacksu jumped onto Gordon's face, which woke him up. He was quite annoyed as he was doing his favorite thing in the entire world. Sleeping, of course. Now, he knew Cookie would never normally do this, so he thought she either needs to go out for a wee, or to do, the number 2 business, or there was something wrong. Sliding out of bed slowly, Gordon wearily crept along the corridor and down the stairs. When he reached the bottom, he couldn't believe his eyes. He saw the orb but had managed to evade its detection, and so he decided he would go back upstairs to wake up the others. He turned and grabbed the handrails and pulled himself stealthily up the stairs back to where everyone was sleeping. Gordon shook each family member one by one and put his finger to his lips so they knew to keep quiet. They all nodded in agreement and went into ninja stealth mode. They all knew Nannan and Grandad's house so well that they knew where to tread so the floor didn't creak. The group slowly descended the stairs. I bet you're wondering what the heck is going on, hmm? Well, let's just look at things from a little bit of a different perspective, or, I'll just put a lid on it and just tell you anyway. My favourite line. Meanwhile, in the magical part of the island inside of the quilt, Ella could see smoke in the distance coming from King Schwebbie's castle. So she decided she would go and investigate as far as the magical barrier and see if she could see what was happening. Ella whistled Chips, her humongous bull-mastiff dog, and climbed onto his back. Chips was an extremely fit fellow and darted off in the direction of the fire towards the magical barrier. It didn't take them long until they reached the divide between the magic and the darkness of King Schwebbie's world. As the barrier bridge came into view, Ella could hardly believe her eyes. There were hordes of people screaming and shouting for help. It was all of the king's subjects. Ella could see the great fire behind them and couldn't let them all die. So she took a stone from her pocket and whispered, "Dissolve us." The small stone emanated a blue glow, and as it brightened, she threw it into the magical barrier, and the moment it touched the magical wall, the force field, it disappeared, and all the villagers rushed onto the magical side. They were darting in so many different directions and heading towards Ella's place. Ella, seeing the fire growing by the second, instructed Chips to turn and run. They were all dashing for their lives. It was a sea of people rushing for sanctuary from the fire. Chips nudged them out of the way and ran for the house. Ella and Chips managed to break into a sizable lead, but she didn't know what to do. She didn't have the power to stop the raging fire. In a move of pure desperation, she decided the only way to save the people would be to put them all in a magical pouch. By the way, she didn't just have one magical pouch, she had many. And travel into the human realm, a.k.a. Gordon's home. She leapt off of Chips's back, and he ran like a sheepdog, herding sheep round the villagers and ushering them towards Ella and the magical pouch. The entire village fit inside, and without a second thought, Ella mounted Chips and instructed him to go find Gordon. Not having a moment to spare as the fire grew, Chips headed for the edge of the cliff and jumped off, soaring downwards before flying upwards to the cloud and through the portal that bridged the gap between their worlds. Now then, back to Gordy and the gang. Where were we? Yes, the family were sneaking downstairs to inspect the strange goings-on of this mysterious orb. As the tribe reached the bottom step, the quilt had nearly been turned into ash. Just before the orb incinerated the last edge, it stopped and put the fire out. No sooner had it stopped, Ella and Chips materialized in Nannan and Grandad's living room. Ella locked eyes on the orb and said, "Chips, destroy." With the elegance of an elephant balancing on a bowling ball, Chips leapt through the air and crunched the orb into pieces. It lay on the ground, destroyed like Lego cubes. Polly rushed over to Ella and hugged her tight.
What happened?
I don't know. All I know is there was a great fire and I had to rescue the people, and the only way was to come here. I have all the villagers in the pouch.
She gestured to the pouch on her belt.
What about Schwebbie?
Bert. Oh, I did see Bert rush in, but I couldn't see Schwebbie anywhere. He must have been left behind. Let's go outside and let the people out of the pouch, and we'll have to figure something out. They may have to stay here.
They all went outside, and Ella opened the pouch, and out marched the villagers. There were a few hundred of them. Hey up now, I'm home, blow me neck. I never thought I'd be back here. Now then, me cockers, how are they all doing, loves?
We're all good, Bert, and it's great to see you too.
We're sorry about the quilt.
Nay worry, love. Well, we're here now, and it's no bother, and I'm sure you'll all think of something that you can do, you know. Suddenly the villagers stopped and huddled round in a circle as if they were hiding something.
What's wrong?
There was an awkward silence. You could have cut the atmosphere with a knife, and the villagers' eyes were fixed open, which was just plain weird. Then from the middle of the circle a disc hovered with 2 villagers standing on it. The small platform hovered above everyone with the 2 mysterious figures standing in tattered robes, their faces covered. After what seemed like an eternity, the 2 figures threw the robes into the sea of villagers. You guessed it. It was King Schwebbie and his sidekick, the annoying interpreter guy. King Schwebbie pulled what looked like a television remote from his back pocket and smiled at Gordon and the family. He relished in pressing a big red button on the remote, and instantly the villagers turned their gaze to Gordon and the family and started to chant, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" King Schwebbie simply smiled as he pushed another button, and the platform he was standing on turned and shot off into the sky at a tremendous speed. The crowd's chant got louder and louder. They were going to wake the whole street at this point. Such inconsideration. Ian, Weeser, Nannan, Grandad, and Mildred assumed a fighting stance and grabbed what they could to defend themselves. Then, all of a sudden, a window in the attic of Nannan and Grandad's house opened and a voice bellowed out.
Who's making all that noise?
It was Danny. Remember, I mentioned him in episode 1. If not, feel free to go back and listen from the beginning.
Danny, help!
Danny's head poked out of the top window and his face was a picture. He was so puzzled as to what the heck was going on. Rolling his eyes, he clambered out of the window and shimmied down a metal drainpipe with an elegance as he had mastered this entrance or exit many times before. While he was descending the drainpipe, the Schwebbie subjects were advancing towards the family like zombies. To add insult to injury, there were Schwebbie guards mixed in with the weak villagers, so the odds weren't in Gordon and the family's favour. As they all readied for battle, Danny jumped from the pipe and landed by their side. Now, just to let you know, Danny was a powerlifter and tattoo artist with some pretty cool tattoos. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. The family pushed Gordon and Polly inside the house and began the battle. Danny and Ian put their backs together and started wading into the zombie-esque villagers with flurries of punches and a few kicks as well. Grandad rolled up his sleeves, revealing some rather muscular, veiny arms. He threw punches in an old-school type way, up, down, and all around. Nannan and Mildred were both wiry and quick like a couple of skilled ninjas. The group were getting overwhelmed fast and didn't know how long they could keep it up. Meanwhile, inside the house, Gordon and frantic Polly were scared and scrambling around, not knowing what to do or where to turn. Then Gordon stopped, and it looked as if he had a light bulb moment.
I've got an idea, Polly. Grab Grandad's fishing tackle box and follow me upstairs.
They both went to the top window and opened the fishing tackle box, revealing a fishing catapult. Gordon had always wanted to use it, but Grandad hadn't given him permission, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Also in the tackle box there were little lead weights and a fresh box of live maggots. Gordon stood in the window and started to provide a little aerial assault to try and help the family. Back on the ground, the family were getting tired. It was fatiguing fighting an army of mindless drones. Ella decided to join the fight too, which would even out the power struggle. The aim was to knock them all out and tie them up. After 14 minutes battling, the zombies were in a huge heap and there were a handful left. From above, Gordon had cracked open the maggots and started to fire them into the faces of the remaining drones. It was just enough to give Danny and Ian the edge as they synchronized a double punch and knocked out the last two. With heaving and heavy breaths, the troop paused to recover.
I'll get kettle on, loves. I'm gonna be sore in the morning.
And with that, Nannan and Grandad went into the house.
We better tie this lot up and put them somewhere.
Danny, Ella, Mildred and Ian towed the townspeople into different locations, some in the garage, others in the house, the garden, the shed. Any free space was now occupied with Schwebbie subjects. The trio, with the addition of Chips, went into the kitchen, meeting Nannan, Grandad, Mildred, Gordon, and Polly, of course, and all sat around the table ready to make a plan of action. Cups of tea were given and offered, and a few hot chocolates, courtesy of Grandad, of course. They all sat in silence at first, trying to recover their stamina and their breath. They all felt a tad beaten and bruised, but after a quick cuppa and a selection from Nannan's secret chocolate box, they brightened up.
What are we going to do?
Now then, Gordon, don't worry, we'll figure something out. Then, at that very moment, Cookie, the little Jackson dog, leaped onto the table and then onto the kitchen countertop and strolled over to a small TV Nannan and Grandad had in the kitchen. Nannan liked to watch the cooking programs whilst cooking. Thought you'd like to know? Anyway, Cookie plonked her little bottom on the side next to the television and made her classical noise to tell the family something was wrong. With a room full of puzzled faces, Cookie sighed and placed her paw onto the remote control at the side of the TV and pushed the button. Now, just to let you know, Nannan and Grandad's TV was quite old and it was made in a very archaic time, so it made weird and funny noises when it turned on, but they liked it anyway. They liked to get every penny out of every purchase they bought. Buzzing to life, the screen lit up and an image began to form. It was a breaking news alert.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is a special bulletin. Alien contact has been made from an advanced civilization, and the Prime Minister is in talks with the extraterrestrial visitors as we speak. As you can see behind me, there are a whole fleet of ships with technology that dwarfs our own.
The camera panned up behind the news reporter, and true to his word, there were many ships in the sky, and they all looked quite sinister.
We will continue the special news broadcast and update you with any developments.
What? How has Schwebbie got all them ships? That's impossible.
Ella stood up and began to speak.
It's not impossible, but things aren't as they seem.
What do you mean?
The ships aren't really there.
What?
They are holographic, being projected into the sky by Schwebbie's orbs that reside in the center of them.
So it's like a bluff then?
Yes and no.
What do you mean?
Well, the orbs are pretty nasty and could do some damage if Schwebbie needed them to. They can shoot lasers and energy beams, but I don't know why he's doing this.
Well, we need to tell someone.
I'm not sure if that would be a wise idea, as Schwebbie could destroy London with those orbs, and before the people of Earth could form a counterattack. If Schwebbie knows we are anywhere near, he might go crazy and destroy everything. He's gone all this way to just get here, so he's nothing to lose.
We need a plan.
Certainly.
The group began to think, which wasn't a pretty sight, as they all looked like they were trying to have a poo on the toilet. I know it's TMI, but it's hilarious as much as it is disturbing. Nobody spoke for a whole 10 minutes, which was very strange, as they were all usually big chatterboxes, but the current situation left them all feeling quite deflated, to say the least. You could tell the little hamster wheels in their brains were going 1,000 miles per hour, trying to come up with a solution to Schwebbie. Then Bert burst through the door, and as often Bert does, he broke the silence.
"Now then, me old loves, why you're all down in dumps. You rescued your family from that tyrant, so why can't you rescue the world from him, eh? Come on now, that best folk I know here, I say, let's have a nip on me brew."
Bert produced a small flask from his pocket.
"Has tha got some shot glasses, Nannan?"
Nannan went over to the cupboard and brought out small shot glasses and put one in front of everyone as Bert filled them with his magical brew. They all took a shot of Bert's magical brew, and the energy revived their minds and filled them with stamina.
We have to get to London and stop him.
Just as Gordon was about to finish, the news reporter began speaking with an update.
This just in, the world leaders have been contacted and are to fly by private jets to London to meet with the leader of the extraterrestrials, who I have been told to call King Schwebbie. All other forms of transportation into the capital have been suspended until further notice. This is Ken Lemons reporting from BCBCDB News.
At that moment, Cookie pressed the power button for the TV and switched it off.
We need a plan of action.
But how are we going to get to London?
Well, excuse me, but we have a flying dog."
Oh, yeah, we have Chips. He could get us there.
"So it's settled then. We can ride Chips to London, but what then? How are we going to get anywhere near Downing Street?"
They all went quiet again.
"Let's just figure that out. On the way. There's only enough room for 5 of us to go."
Well, you'll need me, Ian, Weeser, and Polly. She's good for getting into small spaces.
Gordon begrudged having to take Polly, but she did come in handy in certain situations.
"So it's settled then."
And with that, they all clambered onto Chips's back as he strolled up the driveway and began running until he took off into the sky. It was quite a warm day, so flying through the sky was like riding in a convertible car with the top down. It was going to be a few hours' ride, so they had better get comfortable. It was surprisingly a smooth ride, and the group didn't have to hold on tight. Chips was a seasoned pro at flying and a master chauffeur. Ian pulled his phone out of his pocket.
"I'm going to check the news, see if there's any update."
Ian pushed the volume button as high as it would go.
Here we are at Downing Street to give you the latest update on the current situation. We have been given word that the leader, King Schwebbie, will address the world with a statement shortly.
The camera then panned up, showing the ships again, and all of a sudden it cut to a podium outside of Downing Street. The door behind the podium opened, and out came the Prime Minister and President of America. Wow! Accompanied by King Schwebbie and his translator. The President of America stepped forward and began to speak. "Dear citizens of the world, today I address you in hopes for peace and unity. We certainly have lived in challenging times of late, and to take things to the next level, we have an alien race gracing the planet in search of peace, fairness, and good. King Schwebbie has agreed to work with us to make the Earth a healthier, prosperous planet. We have discussed many things in a short time and decided that it would be in our best interests as a species to allow the king to take command of the planet. Now, I know that may come across as scary, but King Schwebbie intends to advance our civilization through multiple channels such as space exploration, man merging with machine, and person-centered healthcare." At that moment, the crowd booed and chanted, "No!" King Schwebbie's face was a picture. It was pure rage. He was as red as a tomato or a tomato, depending on where you come from. The king stepped forward and battered the president out of the way. He began to speak. Then the translator stepped in to translate.
As your new ruler, I will not tolerate insubordination. You will do as I command, or your fate shall be a living hell, and you will burn. To demonstrate this, you will all witness a small segment of my power.
Schwebbie raised his arm and pushed a button on the controller he held in his hand. Out of one of the ships in the sky came a laser which beamed into Big Ben, the clock tower, and destroyed it with no effort at all. There were gasps from the crowd. Nobody could believe what was happening. The translator continued.
Now you have witnessed a glimpse of my power. You must bow or be destroyed.
The crowd dispersed, and Downing Street was silent. The Prime Minister Torres Bonson stepped forward along with the President of the USA. I do agree that we surrender all power to the great King Schwebbie, and I hope we can work together to make your vision come true, great lord, yes. I agree totally. We can work together to make the planet a much more sustainable advanced civilization. Our armies shall go forth and conquer in your name, great King Schwebbie. Ian clicked the phone off. That's enough of that. I actually can't believe they're going to lay down and let themselves just roll over for this tyrant king. What has the world come to? A clown planet or what?
We can't let them take our freedom away. My great-granddad fought in the war to stop a tyrant robbing us of our freedom, and now we have to do the same for the sake of everyone and everything.
These people are total psychopaths who haven't a care in the world and don't value anything. Why are they doing it? I just don't understand.
Exactly. And that's why we have to be careful, because they would sink the whole earth just to prove themselves right.
After all the debate and commotion from the news broadcast, time had flown and they were nearing London. They could see the smoke from Big Ben coming into view and decided to go on foot from here on out. Chips landed. They all dismounted, shook themselves off, and got their bearings.
Chips, you stay here.
Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe for more.